Hey guys, welcome back to Mason Zero MTG. My name is Mason, and today this is the final episode of going through my new cube. So what was going on here is that my cube was 540 cards. Everything was getting kind of loose and disorganized, and the themes weren't real great. Archetypes were kind of not supported that well. And I took it down to 360, focused a lot more on archetypes rather than sub-themes and stuff like that. And so here we are. The previous 6 episodes are up on the channel. You can check those out. Today we're going to be going through the colorless and colorless and lands. So mostly artifacts in the colorless section. One non-artifact Eldrazi that is going to actually go into the colored section, which I'll get to. It's something that I missed until now. So, again, as in all of these, let me know in the comments if there are any changes I should make based on my cube tutor list in the description and based on what you see here today. So, starting off, we have Skull Clamp. 1 mana equipment, equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards, equip for 1. Just a solid card to have in a tokens deck. I think this one kind of explains itself. Sacrifice a token, draw 2 cards for 1 mana. Basically, I think almost everyone has this in a cube that has tokens in it. Runechanter's Pike, 2 mana equipment, equip 2, equipped creature has first strike and gets +X/+O, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. This one's kind of interesting. I don't know if I love it that much. I haven't really seen it get played yet, but I do like the idea of it. It's a relatively cheap equipment. First strike is relevant, and it can get pretty huge if you are playing a spells deck, so kind of a good equipment to put on a creature in a red-blue deck. Swiftfoot Boots, 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Equip for 1. Just a decent card. Protect your best guy. With hexproof, give your biggest guy haste, all for a pretty low mana cost. So, perfect card for any deck. Phyrexian Revoker, 2 mana for a 2/1. As Phyrexian Revoker enters the battlefield, name a non-land card. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated. This is kind of the catch-all hate card. You can even play it main board if you want to, if you know what someone drafted or know what they're playing, or maybe are expecting some planeswalkers or something. But coming out of the sideboard, it's also great. It can shut down a specific planeswalker if you want it to, something like that. It basically turns off their most powerful card once you figure out what that is. Smuggler's Copter, 2 mana for a vehicle that is a 3/3. When you crew it, has crew 1, and flying. Whenever it attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So of course this was the bane of Standard and ended up getting banned. Very, very good card. It comes down early as an aggressive flyer that also does some filtering for you. I really like this card, and again, as an artifact, it can go into any deck. I think that this works well in an aggro deck, but works well in anything else as well. Treasure Map is 2 mana. You can pay 1, tap, and scry 1, then put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. Then if there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters, transform Treasure Map, and create 3 treasure tokens. So on the other side of Treasure Map, we have Treasure Cove, which is a land that transforms from Treasure Map. You can tap to add Colorless to your mana pool. You can tap and sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Usually when I play this, I use it for that second ability. I sacrifice the treasures to draw a card. This is great for a deck that's going to go the longer game, since you have to scry for 3 turns probably. Next we have Isochron's Scepter, 2 mana. When Isochron's Scepter enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. Pay 2 and tap it, you may copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. This can be a pretty crazy card depending on what you imprint on it. If you imprint a counter spell, then you can just counter whatever your opponent casts each turn. One time it was used on me with Dawn Charm, and they just fogged every turn. There's really a lot that you can do with this. 2 mana doesn't seem like a lot, but there's a lot of powerful spells that are 1 and 2 mana. Then we have the entire cycle of signets. I don't really need to go through those. Have all 10 I mean, I have a foil of Rakdos Signet. I guess that's cool. But yeah, the other ones, just each of the signets, each of the 10 for each guild. Just some good artifact fixing. Those are always useful to have. Next we have Oketra's Monument, 3 mana for a legendary artifact, not that that matters. White creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So this card is good in tokens decks, which are generally going to be based in white, but the best part is you don't have to play white, because you do still get the token every time you cast a creature spell, no matter what color it is. Obviously the cost reduction is going to be nice, so this will probably be in a white deck, but you do not have to play it in one. Sword of Vengeance is 3 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has first strike, vigilance, trample, and haste, and equip for 3. I love this equipment just because it does so much. Most equipment really has such a minimal effect, maybe like 1 buff and 1 keyword at the most. This has a buff and 4 keywords. It is a little bit pricey to equip, but really not a bad deal. Put this on your best creature, protect it, and it's going to do some work. Edifice of Authority. This is kind of a strange card, but I honestly have had good luck with it so far, especially in Amonkhet Limited, but even in Cube, I think it's a useful card. 3 mana, pay 1 and tap. Target creature can't attack this turn. Put a brick counter on Edifice of Authority. Pay 1 and tap. Until your next turn, target creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Activate this ability only if there are 3 or more brick counters on Edifice of Authority. So basically, at some point in the game, you get to pay 1 mana each turn to shut down the best creature your opponent has. The fact that it also gets to turn off their activated abilities is a nice bonus, depending on what they're working with. So I really like this card. Maybe there are better options, but I think it's a nice, fair version of this effect. Burnished Heart is 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature. Pay 3 and sacrifice it. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. I like this card because it's a great way to fix and ramp in colors that don't normally do that. Obviously green is very good at doing that, but other colors, especially like white, not so much. So you can put this in any deck and pay a bit of a premium to get some lands. Filigree Familiar is just a good value card. 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When it dies, you draw a card. So, pretty good rate for all that. It's good sacrifice fodder. And the best part, of course, is it goes into any deck. So if you need a 23rd card, this is usually a good one, just because it fills any slot and it just provides some decent value. Trading Post isn't necessarily a powerful card, but it's a pretty fun one. It's 4 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap to do one of 4 different things. One of them is to discard a card and gain 4 life. One is to pay 1 life and create a 0/1 goat token. You can sacrifice a creature and return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand, or you can sacrifice an artifact and draw a card. So the best part about this card, of course, is that as you go down the line and then back around, each thing is a trade. You trade a card for life, you pay life for a token, you pay a creature to get a card back, an artifact back, you pay an artifact, draw a card, and the cycle starts over. So kind of a fun effect, but really versatile is the best part. You can do a lot of different things with it. So especially if the game is going slow and late, or you're playing a control deck, this is a card you might want to play, just because you can get a lot of value each turn, depending on what situation you're in. There's just a lot that you can do. Treasure Keeper, 4 mana for a 3/3. When Treasure Keeper dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you haven't noticed by now, I love cards that cast spells for free. This one is no different. 3 mana is relatively high for casting a free spell. I like it a lot. It's a little bit like Bloodbraid Elf. In fact, it's almost exactly like Bloodbraid Elf, except on death instead of entering the battlefield. And it's an artifact, so it can go into any deck, which is always an advantage. But I love effects like that let you play things for free. Nevinyrral's Disc is 4 mana for an artifact. Nevinyrral's Disc enters the battlefield tapped. Pay 1 and tap to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. You need a board wipe not every color gets a board wipe. This is a board wipe you can play in any color. Also nice that it hits artifacts and enchantments as well as creatures. I really like this card. It's just generically good. Obviously, your opponent can see it coming, which is not great, but, it's a great card. Okay, next we have Precursor Golem. Precursor Golem is a 5-mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature tokens onto the battlefield. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single golem, that player copies that spell for each other golem that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those golems. A very interesting card, to be sure. It, on one hand, can be bad for you if your opponent has a removal spell. They can remove all of the golems. But then the upside is that if you have a pump spell that targets one thing or, something else like that, then, you can use it for all the things. So I'm sure there's plenty of cool interactions that you can have with this card. I haven't seen any come up, but really excited to see what comes of it. Next we have Mirari, a 5-mana legendary artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 3. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. This is mostly for the spells deck, although it can really go in anything, but mostly blue-red, I imagine. Just some extra value later on in the game, lets you copy spells, which is something that I really like doing. So this is sort of a great utility card for that kind of deck. Moving up to the 7 drops, we have Mere Battlesphere, which is a 4/7. When it enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 colorless Mere artifact creature tokens. When Mere Battlesphere attacks, you may tap X untapped Mere you control. If you do, Mere Battlesphere gets +X/+O until end of turn and deals X damage to the defending player. So very big bomb, certainly. This guy can go pretty crazy. You make a bunch of tokens, and then you can tap them to deal 4 additional damage and make him an 8/7. So very crazy card. This guy I realized I need to put into blue. Elder Deep Fiend. You're probably only going to play him in a blue deck, most likely. So I'm going to move him to blue for the emerge cost and put a different artifact in the place of him here. And take out a blue card, obviously. Still not sure what I would like to take out and add in. So definitely suggest things in the comments. But this guy's great. 8 mana for a 5/6 Eldrazi Octopus. Has Flash and Emerge for 7. That's 5 and 2 blue. When you cast him, tap up to 4 target permanents. So this guy can be pretty crazy. A nice thing you can do is that if you have a creature with Evoke, with the sacrifice trigger on the stack, you can emerge Elder Deep Fiend. So for example, with Mole Drifter, you can pay the 3 to just have him sacrifice and draw 2 cards, but while that trigger is on the stack, pay the emerge cost for Elder Deep Fiend, which would be reduced by 3, so it would only cost 4. And then, you get to sacrifice it and still draw cards. So it's a pretty great combo. Haven't seen it come together yet, but that's one of the possibilities. Lastly, we have Blightsteel Colossus. It's 12 mana for an 11/11 Trample Infect Indestructible. If he would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. This card is insane, and it will win you the game, which is why it costs 12 mana. If you happen to get there somehow by ramping or whatnot, then you will win with this card, as it is almost impossible to remove and to fight against. But again, like I said, 12 mana. It's going to take a long time to get there. Your games might not even go that long. So that is all the artifacts. Next, I'm going to go through the lands. Mostly it's a couple cycles, so this should be pretty quick. But there's a few specialty lands, of course. First, we have Field of Ruin. I have this in the deck over Ghost Quarter because of the fact that you also get to fetch a land for yourself. So you tap out a colorless, you can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice it to destroy a non-basic land that an opponent controls. And then each player searches their library for a basic land, puts on the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So, you pay a land, they get rid of a land, you each get one back. I like this card. Evolving Wilds, you know what Evolving Wilds does. Tap it, sack it, search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped. Terramorphic Expanse is the same thing. Handwear Battlements, tap to add colorless to your mana pool, pay a red and tap it, target creature gains haste until end of turn, and you can pay 3 and 2 red and tap it, and if you both own and control Handwear Battlements and Handwear Garrison, exile them and meld them into Handwear, the Writhing Township, which is a 7/4 that I believe when it attacks makes 2 3/2 Eldrazi tokens, which I think that is actually the side. I think this has, nope, this has the top half. Never mind. But anyways, I do obviously have the Handwear Garrison in the queue because it's a very good card. Figured I'd put the land in as well. You know, giving a creature haste for 1 mana is nice. And then of course, if you can assemble the 2, then that's even better. Darksteel Citadel. It is an artifact land, which is notable, and it's indestructible. Taps for 1 colorless. So this is just kind of something that can go into those artifact decks. Obviously, you can't tap it for a color, but that's a small downside to pay for another artifact. Then we have the cycle of 5 Vivid lands. They all come in tapped with 2 charge counters on them. You can tap to add the respective color to their mana pool, or you can tap and remove a charge counter to add any color to your mana pool. So we have Vivid Meadow, Vivid Creek, Vivid Grove, Vivid Crag, and Vivid Marsh. These are all great cards, good for fixing, for sure. We have all 10 Tri-lands that all tap for 3 colors of various wedges and shards. So we have Opulent Palace, Sandstep Citadel, Jungle Shrine, Nomad Outpost, Savage Lands, Mystic Monastery, Crumbling Necropolis, Arcane Sanctum, Seaside Citadel, Frontier Bivouac. Okay, for our first ally-colored land cycle, and I should preface this by saying that this is all very budget. The land base is very budget, so keep that in mind. I don't have fetches and duels and shocks and stuff. So we have the Poor Man's Fetch lands. They all enter the battlefield tapped, and then they tap and sacrifice to search for their respective basic land types. So they work the same as fetch lands, just they enter tapped, and you don't have to pay 1 life. Otherwise, they're functionally the same. So we have Grasslands, Rocky Tar Pit, Floodplain, Mountain Valley, and Bad River. Then for the enemy colors, we have the Ravnica Bounce lands. So we have Golgari Rot Farm, Izzet Boiler Works, Boros Garrison, Simic Growth Chamber, and Orzhov Basilica. Another enemy color cycle, we have the Man lands from Oath of the Gatewatch and Battle for Zendikar. So we have Needle Spires, Hissing Quagmire, Shambling Vent, Lumbering Falls, and Wandering Fumarole, all of which I think are great on their own, great in the decks that they would go in. Obviously, Shambling Vent, having lifelink is great. Wandering Fumarole can be a lot of fun. Lumbering Falls is hexproof. They just all bring something unique to the table. And then our last cycle of lands is just kind of, it's a multitude of lands. There's not really one cycle. So we have Sunken Hollow from Battle for Zendikar for blue-black, Canopy Vista for green-white, so we do have that cycle, as well as Smoldering Marsh for black-red. But then for white-blue, we have Nimbus Maze, which taps for a colorless, or you can add white if you control an island, and add blue if you control a plains. And then we have Rootbound Crag, which enters tapped unless you control a mountain or forest, and taps for red or green. Those last 2 I just have because I just don't have any extra copies of the of those colors of battle lands around. For example, my blue-white ones are all in a deck, and I don't have any red-green ones for some reason. So anyways, that's how that is. If you have additional land recommendations, let me know, but I pretty much have set in stone what lands that I would want, and I like the mana base pretty well. But, as always, for lands and for artifacts, let me know if you have any suggestions. Always happy to look into new cards that I may not have seen yet. Always happy to try things out. So thank you all for watching, and looking forward to your comments. And this has been the Cube series, so it is over. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see next, especially on Cube. I'd be happy to do more videos on it. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.